Okay, everybody, we're going to be doing another postmortem. Tonight, we're going to be doing AuSable. AuSable was the second game that I created very shortly after I created All of Our Friends Are Dead. You'll be seeing that a lot as this goes on. You'll be seeing a lot of, oh, this looks just like All of Our Friends Are Dead too. And that's not far from the fact. But I'll save that for as we go on in. Let's just get right into the middle of it. Okay, so we start with the line, Harmonia, where are you? And I tried to actually include a lot more like lore into AuSable than I did with All of Our Friends Are Dead. And with All of Our Friends Are Dead, I tried to really avoid getting too caught in conceptualizing. And so I thought I'd stretch out a little bit with AuSable. And I had the names for the characters. The protagonist you play as this young woman. Her name is AuSable, and you are looking for your sister Harmonia, who has wandered off strangely in the middle of the night into these forbidden woods. These strange, malevolent, forbidden woods that everybody just sort of silently understands not to travel into. So we can see there's been some structures here. I actually took a lot of inspiration from a couple places in real life in my state. One of them was in my own hometown. I named the protagonist Szabo and her sister Harmonia after two little towns that used to exist in Michigan. AuSable was a little shoreline village on the side of Lake Huron and existed back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and one night it burned down mysteriously. And I've heard a couple different explanations. I've heard some people say that a lot of people died in that fire. I've heard a lot of other stories where nobody died in that fire and everybody fled to the sister city Oscoda. I don't know what the truth on that is. I just remember when I was a kid, we took a family vacation up north to Mackinac Island, and on the way back home, we made a stop over in Oscoda, the sister city that still remains. And the whole time I was really, really just overwhelmingly, I was really, really tightly wound. I was very uncomfortable, and I didn't like it. And we left very early the day after that. Years later, I asked my mom about that city, Oscoda, and I said, was I just being a fussy kid that wanted to go home and play video games, or was that city actually kind of creepy? And she said, yeah, we all really disliked that place. There was something really unnerving about that we could never really place. And it made me curious, and that's how I found out about Harmonia. AuSable. And Harmonia was actually a little village that existed a long time ago in the limits of the city I used to live in, Battle Creek. And it was this little village that was made up out of people who were big into what was known as the spiritualist movement in the mid-1800s. And spiritualism, I believe the best way to describe it would be kind of like the, sort of like a more occultish version of Scientology, and there were people who were big adherents to it, and they formed little commune areas around the country. Harmonia was one of those places, and eventually those people kind of disbanded, and that area left to ruin, and you could actually wander into that territory and check out the foundations of buildings that existed a long time ago. But they were all completely surrounded by trees and overgrowth, and it was heavily neglected. It was a very discomforting place to explore, and it always stuck in my head, so I thought, hell, we'll just name the character Harmonia. So, let's get further into the game. Okay, so there's our first hallucination. That was meant to be Harmonia, like a hallucination of a very distorted Harmonia rising up out of the water. And now you can see the water has turned blood. We already have a body. That's actually a graphic from All of Our Friends Are Dead. I recycled a lot of art from All of Our Friends Are Dead for this. So I wanted a lot of neglected occult style imagery in this. Again, that kind of ties back to my experiences of visiting Harmonia. We have a character here, looks like a young man, nailed to a throne with a sword pushed through him. That's what I went for. I don't know if anyone really picked that up. And we have a recurring ally, this character. I never really had a name for him. I think I called him just the Masked Man. And he'll show up and give ambiguous tips. And then he'll just kind of disappear into the ground. Okay. Again, AuSable was built on the same platforming engine technology that... or AuSable was built on the same technology as All of Our Friends Are Dead was. So very, very, very similar in gameplay and scope and scale. Okay, so you have another hallucination here. There's two masked men pointing from the trees to a woman hung from a tree. This hallucination will actually last as long as you like. It terminates the moment you wander left or right off of the screen. And we're back. And the world has changed a little bit. That's a thing I stole from the games, the Fear games. It was like how when you'd have a hallucination and then it would snap you back into reality. Reality was almost the same, but something would be a little bit different. It was very disorienting because you didn't know where the hallucination would be or if there was one to solve a puzzle sometimes, and it was very confusing. I thought maybe I could try and make that a little bit more streamlined in a way. And so yeah, this was my attempt at taking that element from Fear. Okay, here's my attempt at a tutorial. The masked man giving you the hint, use your eyes to open his. So, AuSable has these mysterious two red eyes that follow behind her everywhere she goes. And there's really no clearly defined reason for them. You could consider them to be an extension of her spirit, her energy. It could be some magical force. There really was no clearly defined reason. Frankly, it was a mechanic that I put graphics to after the fact, and I like the way they looked. So there isn't any super hidden, mysterious explanation to them, but they're just a very cool effect, and I thought it was a nice touch. So you have to have your eyes make contact with what I call those eye blocks. Okay. Okay. These hands here, these are the first monsters I actually made for the game. I design a lot of my stuff in a chronological order, so I don't do things out of order. I really make the game as I go. So when you see monsters, they tend to be the first monster I've designed. The hands, originally in concept, they were going to be like a hand that would slowly reach up out of the water and grab a hold of the player, and if you let them hold on to you too long, they would drag you down under the water, and that would be it. But I didn't really know how to program very well at the time, and that was a little bit of a headache, so I opted to just turn them into a hazard that was a one-touch kill. So, satis est is a Latin phrase, which means that's enough. And the rest of that phrase there, to tell you the truth, I can't remember what I wrote. I don't know. Okay, this little poem here about the hunters in the woods, that too deep into the woods to return, forever the hearts of the hunters burn. That was meant to imply that these woods, whatever this malevolent force, this unmaker that controls this plot of land is, it sort of consumes and corrupts anything living that enters it, whether it be plants or animals or human beings. And very often hunters would be lured into the woods to hunt game, and they would be consumed by this malevolent force, this unmaker. So that's going to come back here in a few minutes in the game. Okay, so we have blocks that move, or gateways that move and open and close. Okay, so here he is warning us. Then the next monster here will shoot fireballs. So you gotta be a little bit quick on your toes. Okay. Okay. What you're about to see next is me stealing from the Ring and a lot of J-horror stuff. We have this line, why couldn't we just be safe together? It's kind of implying that that was something Harmonia wrote. And here we have these little quick flashes. Okay, so here we go. The hunters smell wild blood in you. And now you see them all wake up. And, and I eat shit. First death. Yeah, so the hunters are coming to life, and they're stalking us through these cursed woods. And you can see that their legs are completely stretched out and distorted. I don't know if I have any good story for this one. I can't think of anything. Okay, so yeah, the hunters are. Let me get a good look at one here for a minute. Okay, so they're weird because they're taller than the player. And what I was trying to communicate in this is that they weren't human anymore. They should be, if they were human, they would be to scale to the size of AuSable. And they're not. They're taller. And their bottom legs are supposed to look like exposed nerve or something. If you look closely, you can see a tail wafting off of them that's a little similar to the tail that links the two eyes of AuSable. And that was sort of meant to be like in part that they have some mystical power that's been dragged away from them. It's not fully there. It's not theirs anymore. As we enter this house, the Masked Man says, become a sport more challenging. Okay, now this little puzzle here where you shoot fire down onto the bad guy, like this time it worked really, really well. But in situations where the player, where the enemy starts like lurking around here for a long time, that leaves the player to stand here and just like sit on ass and wait for that bad guy over here to finally work his way back over here into the hazard zone. And that wasn't good. If I could go back and do that again, I think I would have made the fireballs actually bounce and make their way back and forth across this bottom area so that no matter where he was, he would still get burned up. But okay, we got our shotgun, right? And you might notice that we don't have a crosshair. That was intentional. I wanted the audience to get the impression that this character we're playing, while she's fast and she can jump and all of that, she isn't necessarily heroic. She's not a badass that is capable with weapons. This wasn't I don't know, a power trip kind of thing, at least at this part. So I wanted it to really feel like you were as uncomfortable and unsure of how to use this weapon as AuSable herself was. That said, I did include a feature. If you hit backspace, you can get a crosshair, because you know, it can get very frustrating for some people. And since I'm using a dual monitor setup, I am going to use this crosshair setup because if I don't, it's very easy for me to just whoop, and suddenly I'm onto my left screen, and I can no longer tell where I'm at. If I click, I'll just click on my video recorder. Okay. Let's go. These Minotaur characters are kind of cool. I really like their walk cycle. I've always been bad at animating walking animations. Very often I kind of get a can. Like obviously the running animations for this and All of Our Friends Are Dead are really silly. But yeah, I liked how I was able to impart good, I don't know, locomotion through just 2 frames. So yeah. Okay. Quick save in this game is F5, and quick load is F8. Unlike All of Our Friends Are Dead, where quick load is F6. I have no idea why I switched that. I think somebody was having a problem with F6 being quick load. And so when I made this, I made quick load F8, I think. I can't fully remember. Okay. Another thing about this that I would probably go back and do again is that the RNG, the random number generator that creates the trigger for when players or enemies shoot, was a little bit too random, and it made for some really frustrating, very, very, very cheap deaths. So I should have done a little bit more on curtailing random. If you make a game and you use an RNG, make sure that you make it use random kind of the same way you use salt in making food. Yeah, don't make it a pile of salt. That's the best thing I can compare it to. Okay, so we have a fake out floor that leads us into another hallucination. And this hallucination was to try and imply that this is the voice of this malevolent unmaker force speaking to you, AuSable. The concept of evil in this game was not about evil that would try and take over the world. I think a lot of people try and make the idea of an evil that would eventually take over the world, and that, I don't know, to me that kind of gets boring, because you know what the evil's end game in that is, and you know what to deny it. And so the evil in a lot of my stuff isn't so much that world killing. Oh, I don't know, I take that back. I do use some world killing evil in some of my games, but in here it was more like this, like benign, well, sort of benign tumor carbuncle in the middle of space-time that was embedded into this area of the planet. That only thing that could grow was maybe trees and whatever it decided should grow there. So it would try and grab life, and it would try and it was the thing that coveted life, and it would take life, but by the action of taking life, it would destroy life. So it was this perpetually miserable, coveting, needing, wrathful thing that just took things that it liked and was never happy from what it took. That kind of evil interests me. An evil that is actually punished by getting the thing it wants, and thus becomes even more toxic. So, okay, we use the eyes to solve that puzzle. We return from that hallucination. Yeah, okay. Oh, God. Just put my hands together and dove in on that one. Okay. I have no idea how I pulled that off. I should have been dead. Oh, kind of cool thing right here I could talk about is that these bells, I had no idea how to make a bell swing, or like a entity swing in a pendulous manner. And I was really stuck. I think I was on TIG source, and I just put a SOS message out there saying, help, baby make game, baby know how to make game, help baby please. And somebody was like, "All right, here, I'll write the code for you." And he did, and he wrote this really nice swinging bell animation. It was very, very handy. And then another person actually wrote the AI code for the monsters so that they wouldn't walk themselves straight off of a ledge. And without either of those people, I would have really been stuck. I think it's something that people don't really think about, you know, when they start making a game, is when they come up to a feature or a function that they feel like is important to have in their game, and they forget, like, oh god, I actually have to think of how that works. And then they get very overwhelmed, they get stuck, and then the game dies. So, you know, if you can be that hero to somebody, like, even if you just like give them direction to somebody else, or you email another person if you don't know or you can't help, and you contact somebody who you think can, and you go to the distance to really help them get their idea off the ground and kind of help them connect a dot here and there. That could be a huge a source of motivation for people. You know, as long as you're not being asked to do like the entire goddamn game for them, but you know. Okay. So we have a statue. It looks like it's bleeding, and it looks like it's a statue of Harmonia. But then it could also actually be Harmonia's body. I never really made that clear. So is it a statue? Is it dead Harmonia? I don't know. By the way, I'm really sinusy right now, so if I'm sniffing and snorting kind of like a coke fiend, I apologize. I am sick. Your boy is sick. Okay. So now we have to ring the third bell. This is another great feature to put in your games. Again, upsetting expectations. Like right now, the player doesn't really know what's going to happen when the 3 bells ring, but they think maybe a door will open or something like that. And by having the payoff be asymmetric to the event, and doing that maybe in like 1 or 2 very isolated cases, 2 might really be pushing it, but if you could do it at least just once in a game, you can really mess with people's expectations and make them nervous from then on out. So now we have this strange sound, and the whole temple is blown apart. And we're being approached by an unkillable version of Harmonia. And here's our guardian friend, and there's nothing we can do, and we're fucked, and then... Okay. So, with that, we really messed with people. I think I stacked one really disorienting effect on top of another there, and it really helped to create kind of a change, like a break. This is like the midway section of the game, and that was what I was hoping to have, including that really long black screen of silence. I had some people think that the game crashed when that happened, and they would turn off the game. And it was kind of frustrating. They go like, the game crashes after you get you can't defeat the floating girl, and then she dies, and then that's it. Your game sucks. And you know, how do you reply to that other than telling them no, just wait. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they've already made up their mind, and that was enough for them to be too disappointed to continue. And at that point, you just kind of have to realize, well, you know, maybe I made a ride that just wasn't for them. So you can't make everybody happy. You have to make what you think is cool, and if you believe in it, go. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. Okay, let's get the crosshair back, and we wander back into the world we came from. We can see that all of the trees have burned. There's these strange red nerves that are sticking up out of everywhere, and they've created platforms. Another thing I'd like to add about the shotgun is that it's scattershot. Each of those pellets that you see are an individual entity. So they will bounce off of stuff. Um, you can sometimes bank shots a little bit, but it's such a short duration and the spread is so quick that it really does become, it goes from being a power weapon up close to being a pea shooter very quick. See, we can just pick away at that guy. But if we get closer, we can do more damage. I'm very happy with that. I don't think I've ever made another shotgun in a game that's been quite as effective at being that kind of, that style of weapon ever again. Okay, I'm gonna save here. This graphic here, the center flickering circle part, was actually taken from AuSable. God, I'm gonna be doing that a lot, aren't I? It was taken from All of Our Friends Are Dead. That was a recycled graphic from All of Our Friends Are Dead. This is actually the first game, I think, that I used the tool SFXer. And if you if you know what if you don't know what SFXer is, SFXer is a sound creation tool that has a whole bunch of sliders and knobs and tweaks and toggles in it that allow you to create very 8-bit sounding sound effects very quickly. And it was kind of new right when I was playing with making games for the first time, and that kind of tool was not really a known thing until around this period. And I think I heard about it from a lecture given by Cactus. Cactus did a lecture and he mentioned how much he liked SFXer, and I found it, and I found this super cool free little tool to make 8-bitty sounds, and I still use it. I still use it today. But now everybody and their brother uses it, so you can, I can start to hear when people use SFXer in games now. I go, okay, yeah, you used SFXer to create that. It doesn't quite have the magic it used to. Okay, let's just jump in. Okay, so now we have this malevolent energy, and it's coming down at us. If we aren't careful, we will die. Like that. Some people really like this part of the game. Other people really can't stand this part of the game. It's a very polarizing segment. I like the idea that it really just puts a lot of anxiety on the player. Very quick and very heavy. And then it doesn't last too long. You'll die a couple times usually at first. That was the intention, that you'd be bad enough at it at first, but then after about 3 attempts you'd be okay. And I think maybe I gauged that well for people like me, but I didn't gauge that well for other people. Okay. Gotta save. Okay. I'm really glad I saved. Okay, can I be a badass and get a hat trick? Oh no, I can't. Okay. You know, I should have left that one body of the one dead masked man as a one-time use element, because I wanted the audience to feel like you lost your guardian at the end of that hallucination where the whole world changes and all the trees die. And I kept using that masked man corpse after that, and it kind of takes away from that. So. By the way, there is no explanation as to who that masked man is. Oh, okay, so here we are with the quote-unquote boss fight with the Hydra. It's this 5-headed creature, and the 5th head in the center has been severed. So the idea is that this Hydra has been kind of imprisoned because the fifth head has been put in a suspended animation inside this magical ring of blades. So if you can unleash the chains, then you can you're rescuing the Hydra. And it looks really evil, so I think a lot of people get the idea that this is a precursor to an even bigger boss fight. That wasn't intentional though, but wow, I nailed that. That fight was a lot more difficult than I intended it to be. I've seen a lot of people have struggled with that. Okay, so now we have this hallucination where this Hydra thinks that we're Athena, this warrior woman. It's sort of implying that we've become this very, very powerful creature. Powerful enough to revive a Hydra. And in its admiration, it takes on the form of a gun, or the closest thing you can imagine to being a gun. And so now we have this automatic fire weapon. And it didn't come through, but I like the idea that the projectiles were actually the teeth of the Hydra. So this is actually the living Hydra made into a gun. And I made a couple attempts at trying to draw it, but it looked like a kind of like a edgy Borg weapon or too close to H.R. Giger, and I really wanted it to look like an ancient animal made out of dark carapace and stone, trying its absolute hardest to imitate the weapon of the person that rescued it. So maybe I'll take another attempt at making that gun again. I don't know. Okay, so these guys, they're kind of like how when children wear a big coat and they try and look like an adult. Like, this is some sort of malevolent creature that is just made up out of dead and suffering humans. And the only way you can kill it is if your eyes pass over it. So you can take away its like physical form, but its corporeal form exists until your eyes pass over it. And if you allow it to stay in its corporeal form too long, it will manifest again as a as something of flesh and blood. Somebody did a really, really cool piece of fan art of that a long time ago. It looked like an oil painting. It was all digital, and it was absolutely beautiful. I loved it. It always blows my mind when I see somebody has decided to take their time and energy to make a piece of fan art inspired by things I've done. It was a little bit more common back in the like early 2010s. It's not so much anymore. And I understand why. A lot of those artists have actually become more and more professional as time went on. And when you make your talent your job, you have to ask people to pay you. So, you know, a lot of very talented people are realizing, hey, I deserve to get paid, and they're absolutely right. So, yeah. Let me see, I'm trying to think of something else to mention. Oh god, I should have talked about the mutated hunters with the gun for the head. If we come across another one, I'll show you. Here's a line that you could decide might either be something that Harmonia is saying to you, or it could be the Unmaker, implying that, you know, because it is pure evil, then pure evil is with you since your birth. I don't know. It's for you to figure out. Okay, yeah, so we got the gunhead guy here, right? These gun-headed things are the mutated hunters who've been affected since that cataclysmic event earlier in the game. and their gun has now literally melted into their head, and they could fly. So I like that design. I tried to do a drawing of that a little while ago, and I never completely finished it, but I really like the idea of having a mechanical part, just fuse and graft itself into the skin. Oh, and the music in this part of the game, the female vocalist you hear is actually a very old friend of mine. Somebody who was one of my first few internet friends for a long time. And we've always kept in touch, and it's weird. We've like lived our own lives for like decades now. Like she's married, she has kids, I'm engaged, and we've always kept in touch and always been really big into what one another has been creative on. And I thought when I was working on this piece that I wanted to have a woman singing. I didn't really know any, women in real life who were comfortable being recorded to sing, and I thought had a good voice for singing. So I got a hold of my friend and I said, "Hey, would you mind recording just you singing a few notes?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." And she's like, "Well, how do you want me to know what notes to sing?" So I made this really crappy recording of me humming the melody. And then I sent that to her and I said, "Okay, like do this, but like without being bad." She's like, "All right, no pressure." And like maybe about like an hour or so later, she sent me a recording of her doing this. I added a little echo, and then I added it to the ambient stuff, and it came out really, really good. I think it might be my favorite piece of work that I've done for audio. Okay. This part, it's a little bit tricky. Oh god, okay. This double cross graphic here, this design, is actually an image that I've had for a very long time. I think I've been using this image since maybe around 2003? It's kind of fallen out of favor because it does look very authoritarian, and it's not really something I've been trying to go for. But I've always liked the graphics, and I thought it would look really well in AuSable. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Uh, should I? No, I'm not gonna tell you anything about this. I'm sorry. This one's just gonna be left up for you to figure out. There's something to this, and I'll let your imagination figure this one out. But there's something weird about these things on the tree. And don't ask me if you're right, because it doesn't matter what you say. I'll say you're wrong. Uh, uh, uh. Oh, what did I say back there? Suffer not their turgid dreaming. Interesting. I forgot about that piece. Oh, man. The red flashes in this are really intense. I used a lot of stuff that shouldn't be good for people with epilepsy when I was younger. It's a really good effect to mess with people's heads, but it also messes with people's heads. So I've had to learn different visual techniques. Okay, this line, "I never wanted to be found." It could be implied that Harmonia actually chose to wander off into these woods to be claimed by this malevolence. Yeah, now here we have the question, like, what is the difference between corruption and voluntary evil? And obviously we're having a repeat of the beginning scene here. Okay. Look in here. You know, I think that hung woman at the beginning of the game, the hallucination where you saw the woman hanging from the tree, I think that was actually supposed to be Harmonia and AuSable's mother, and the young man stabbed into the throne, I think, was supposed to be their brother. Poetry's a little bit too edgy in this, I feel. The tears of blood. I mean, I don't know, how many times have we read that now? Very often I'll make fun of my own habit of writing really pretentious shit on walls. Okay, so this has two endings. We're going to try and get both endings, because I've seen people who've been struggling with getting both endings of this game. So, unfortunately, the source code for this has been long since lost. So, this is the closest I can really give people who've been struggling with trying to get the alternate ending. So we're going to do two endings. The first ending, we're going to try shooting the angels. Okay. You have to shoot them until they turn into an eye, and then you... Hey! Cool! We did it. We held back the Unmaker. Now we can rescue Harmonia. You can see the gun laying on the ground there. And it's never explicitly explained whether Harmonia is alive here or dead, but I like to think she's alive. I mean, this is the good ending, so I think that AuSable rescued Harmonia and everything's okay now. Okay, so we have the credits, and that is the ending, the good ending. Now we'll try and get the bad ending. Oh god, I didn't know my save was this far back. Okay, we're good. Ah! Okay. You know what, I'm just gonna do a little skippy skip here, this way you won't have to watch the entire thing all the way through, so... Cue time-lapse right about here. Sorry about that. Alright, so let's take on Harmonia this time. Instead of shooting the angels, we'll be shooting Harmonia. Which is the easier way to win the fight. Oh god, okay. Oh, saved a lot of time on that one. Also, the bullets don't travel off screen like they did in All of Our Friends Are Dead, so that makes this fight a little bit more awkward. You can't just cheap it. You can stun the angels, though. You can turn them into eyes for a little bit. Oh, shit. Woo-hoo. Okay. Okay. And Harmonia is dead. Oh, I should probably talk a little bit about the creation of the Unmaker. This was a graphic that I made using, I think I used Sculptress for this, I believe. Either that or ZBrush, I can't remember. And I created a shape, and I used the like the hook tool, I think it was, to just drag out different elements all over the place. And once I got that into a shape that I liked, I got a lighting and texture that I liked, and I took a screenshot of that. I took a screenshot into Photoshop, and I did my usual technique of dropping the color count way down, and then I started adding details like the eyes and other pieces here and there. So yeah, it's almost like using a digitized photo from like the way they used to do digital graphics like back in the 90s, but with CG. Okay, let's get the ending, the bad ending. Okay, in this one, I was trying to convey that AuSable, having killed Harmonia, is replacing who she was. So the cycle just keeps repeating. I don't know if that came through or not. Anyway, yeah. So that was AuSable. A lot more polished than All of Our Friends Are Dead. I think this one took maybe about, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 months. It was the first game I ever put out that I got a cake for. I got a cake for it, and that was really cool. And I had a lot of really cool people that helped me on this. A lot of really cool people. Some of them I don't see anymore and I miss, and some of them I still talk to quite a lot. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Started getting some attention with this game, and yeah, it was an absolute blast. It was really a big surprise to me that people enjoyed this so much, and it got spread around the internet so quickly at that time. I really recommend anybody who's thinking about trying to make games, just make them. Just get out and make the game. Don't worry about branding. Don't worry about getting on Steam. Don't worry about what demographic you're going to target. Just make something that you think looks cool to you and maybe 2 of your friends, and then throw it at the web. And if nobody cares, you still accomplished something. You know, you made something from absolutely nothing. And if people do care, then, you know, go from there. Tinker around and ask them questions and take their feedback into consideration as you please. So, anyway, yeah, AuSable, really fun game. Thank you very much for watching this Postmortem. My name is Amon26. You can go ahead and contact me on Twitter at Amon26. Or if you have a question you want to ask me about it here in the comments section, please go ahead. I'll answer everything that I can. And yeah, there we go. Thank you very much, and have a good night.